Anyways, today I am going to do a little introduction of AMD. Today is actually Lisa Su's fashion of white inside and black on the outside. I think that's kind of like her trademark, so let's get started, guys. So AMD actually stands for Advanced Micro Device, and they didn't really have a slogan. So I found something that, kind of could work as a slogan, and it's future is fusion. So company profile, everyone. So their mission statement is to accelerate developer adoptions. Again, like I said, it's not exactly their mission statement, but something along the lines that could have been a mission statement, on which I brought it. I couldn't find their vision statement, so I brought their core values, and it's design, silicon manufacturing, assembly and testing, product shipping, and product manufacturing, customer use, and reuse and recycle. Honestly, that's very common one, maybe in most manufacturing areas. And overall, their main products include microprocessors, motherboard chipsets, embedded processors, and graphic processors. So all the fancy words that you guys been hearing of, like the CPUs, GPUs, like motherboard that goes all in your computer, AMD makes them, which I was actually very surprised. This is kind of what I thought of AMD was. It's just Intel's biggest rival, but with the best CEO. Honestly, that's just what I thought AMD was. I was actually very ignorant of AMD, to a point where when I did this research, I was like, holy cow, I didn't realize that this company was a very, very long company. Holy cow, what is going on? Now going on with their company history. So we're gonna start, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna sound very stupid, but honestly, I thought AMD was run by Lisa Su. And I thought it honestly started at 2016. The biggest, stupidest mistake. And I looked up company history, and the first thing I got was this guy, Jerry Sanders. Has anyone heard of him? Like, did you guys know that it wasn't from Lisa? Like, Lisa wasn't, and AMD starts way back in 1969. Well, I'm going to sound stupid, but I honestly thought that when Lisa Su started, that is when all things happened. But it's way back in 1969. And good job for you guys to know about this. A little bit background about Jerry Sanders is that he was in electrical engineering, who was the director of marketing at the Fairchild, another famous semiconductor company. And he was one of those members who got super sick and frustrated with the increasing lack of support and opportunity and flexibility within the company. And then so he was like, okay guys, we're done here. I'm just gonna go out and make a new company. So him, along with Intel's old CEO, Gordon Moore, they both left Fairchild and created AMD. Well, Jerry created AMD. Moore's created Intel. So they were approximately starting at the same time, which I was like, what? So then it all got messed up in my mind. I was like, what? What is going on? Surprisingly, when he first got out of the company, he was a little bit different from what Intel did. When Intel kind of focusing on creating their own design of semiconductors, AMD actually began to redesign parts from Fairchild and National Semiconductors, which looked like those, which is kind of shocking. So Intel, Motorola, IBM were actually doing researches, while AMD does more like, oh wait, let's kind of like reverse engineer, see what they did, and then, or like keep making parts for Fairchild and National Semiconductor to see like what was, what's going on. By 1972, they became a public company within that short period. So basically, they were kind of like TSMC back then. They had people ask them to make something, and they were like, okay, we'll make it. And then they made something, and then they were like, ta-da, we made it for you. And then get kind of like the ideas down, jot them down, so that they can create on their own. On the other hand, for Intel, I noticed that they were more like, let's just focus on R&D and research, which is very different. Now, by 1974, AMD was a public company with a portfolio of over 200 products. So I'm guessing a lot, not only from Fairchild and National Semiconductors, but other companies did ask them to, you know, like, hey, make some for me too. So, and surprisingly, only a quarter of which were their own design, which included RAM chips, logic counters, and bit shifters. So the first product that they, you know, created was AM9080, and I thought this product was fun. Obviously, they created others, but this was interesting because they actually reverse engineered a copy of Intel's successful chip of 8008, which looks just like that. What a coincidence. I mean, can you tell the difference? I don't know. AMD seems longer. Intel seems shorter. Huh. You know? So a little thing about the Intel is like by this time Intel released it. And this is actually very shocking, but it was maybe kind of like, you know, it could be done. Like, not too big of a deal. So what Intel and AMD did was they did a cross-licensing agreement, which is basically a contract that says, okay guys, I know you're trying to like reverse engineer and try to sell the same thing. Maybe you say that it's kind of different. I mean, you say it's different, but honestly, come on, you basically copied it. But okay, we'll make an agreement. You could produce it, have your own logo, but you know, like give me some stuff. You know the deal. Like, and this kept happening. Another fun project would be this one, which on the left side is the 16 bits Intel 80286, and the right side is AM286. Obviously, come on, chips probably look the same, but this is like same. This looks the same. But one thing that I found interesting about both when they copied is that Intel designs this super cool thing. What AMD only had to do was make it better. Now these are two different companies, and AMD's more like, okay, you do all the hard research work. All I'm gonna do is be on your piggyback, but I'm gonna be a bit higher than you. So that was the tension that was going on between Intel and AMD. And this is when it kind of started with this. Honestly, at this point, I was like, come on, Intel, go make your own product. Why are you copying Intel's? Like, I don't know. I'm very like, okay, like, that's yours, this is mine. Like, nah. Now then we're like, okay, by this time, Intel was like, okay, dude, you really need to stop. Like, we do all the hard work, and for you to mooch off of us? Come on, bro. Like, what happened? Oh, so the Intel's attempt to stop AMD, or Intel's payback as I wrote it, is that Intel was like gonna exclude AMD from creating the next generation 386, as you guys mentioned it, the processor. And AMD was like, what? You are a beep. Like, why would you do this to me? So AMD actually sued Intel. But unfortunately, this suing process and everything took 5 years. And this was like the bad time because at this time, this little buddy came in. As all my oldies know, this is what? IBM computer. So at this time, IBM PC market was starting to rise, and the fact that they could only use Intel because AMD didn't have that high level technology back then doesn't work. So what AMD had to do was now take that 5 years because you know, they thought that the suing thing was gonna work, but that it didn't. But it was like, nah. So it took them 5 years to reverse engineer the AM386, and we got this product. I don't know, it's like so copy. So then I'm like, so they do have the same name. I was like, I said 386, and I was like, wait, but that's the same as Intel. Well, guess what? It is the same name. A little bit about this is I'm just gonna read straight off if I don't understand, because I didn't understand the actual function of it, but it's original 386 debuted at just 12 megahertz in 1985 and later managed to reach 33, the top-end version of AM386, launched in 1989 at 40 megahertz. And then a little bit about this product, as I feel like everyone knows that I didn't know, was that this actually did 20% more performance than Intel's 33 megahertz i486. So what happened in 1994 was the revenue of AMD was 1 billion at 1990, rose, doubled to 2 billion in 1994. So it only took them 4 years to get that price up because AM386 was much better. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I think this is when like AMD was like, okay, Intel, I'm so sick of you. AMD was like, you are sickening me, Intel. Like, you just, like ditched me on that like whole thing, and now, So what they did was they were like, okay, we're gonna create this thing called 5K86, which was a first processor that AMD actually built entirely by their own engineers. So no like reverse engineering, no copying, no. This is all from AMD, brain. And then this actually competed with the Intel Pentium and Cyrix 6x86. Oh my god, these names are so hard. But what's surprising is that AMD was like, we have this really cool product that we're gonna actually, sell these, and it's gonna be a bomb, it's gonna be a blast, we're gonna have so much fun. But we had an issue, and the issue was that they had a designing issue along with a manufacturing issue. So what that led to was that the performance wasn't meeting their goals, and it didn't meet their frequency at all, and basically that drove a big snowball. That means that's late to the market, and Intel gets more interest, and then they're like, where's AMD? Well, guess what? AMD, we couldn't get the product out, or like the product has so much defects, and blah, 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 blah. So, as a result, all said, poor sales. Not that many of this product was been sold, and maybe I think at this time, Intel was like, okay, we're not good at designing. Maybe we're good at like manufacturing, or maybe we should focus at some one part or something. So something really cool happened that year was that they partnered with Nexgen, which is a small fabless chip, but they only design the companies. So a little bit about this company is I brought the news back in 1995, as you guys can see it. It says Advanced Micro AMD said it will buy Nexgen Inc. for about 857 million in stock in an effort to keep pace with the computer chip industry with market leader Intel Corp. Nexgen shareholders will receive 0.8 share of AMD for blah 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 blah. And so basically they were going to partner up. And so a little bit about this was that they developed something called an NX686, which became the AMD K6. And how did the result end? Intel actually declined because the K6 was against Intel Pentium. But K6 had much better performance. And then I was like, okay, this company that we never heard of, how did this company just like bring up this thing? Like I did some research and people actually mentioned, and this guy had a big impact. Well, he is the father of Pentium, who actually worked at Intel but left at 1995 to work for Nexgen. So, how did K6 win against Intel's? Ta-da! So, by this, K6 versus Intel's product, the sales actually rose for AMD 9% from to 590.4 million from 543.1 million. Surprising. So, thanks to this guy who actually helped out, who actually knew the secret too about the product. All like time flies, we're still battling each other. Like, I hate you, you hate me. Which one's better? I like this one better. No, that one's better. Yada 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 yada. Next came this sad retirement of, I guess, retirement or like the moving on, passing on from our Jerry Sanders to Hector Ruiz, who's actually from Mexico, and he actually worked in Texas Instruments and Motorola. He was in that semiconductors products sector. So we got a new CEO. Really nice guy. He, worked at TI, Motorola. He's like semiconductor. I know everything. Yada yada yada. And then 2006 comes AMD, and ATI merger. So what happened here was that Intel actually kicked in with a better product. That's all Intel's story, but you know, the back and forth. Now this is a time where Intel's way better than AMD. And making AMD again fall down with the ranking of the CPUs. So then AMD was like, okay, like that was just like rocking with the CPUs. Oh, should I take a new route? And that's what they did. There was like, you know what? Maybe CPU is not AMD's future. Maybe GPU, guys. GPU. Maybe I haven't heard of any other companies. GPU is the answer, guys. So they did purchase ATI technology, which creates the video graphic cards, the GPUs, for the PCs. It was a $5.4 billion deal to get them in place for graphic cards. The deal was a huge financial gamble, obviously, because we're not sure how well like the GPU market's gonna be with having this company involved. And a little bit about like the company itself is that they were actually overvalued. Wasn't pulling anything closer, you know, with the revenue. It was actually more like they only got money from their IPs and they didn't even have a manufacturing site. So that's a little shaky. Now, everyone asked the question, was it a good idea? Was actually like purchasing this company a good idea? No. Why? Why no? Come on. We already have Intel that's rocking at CPUs. Why not GPUs? I don't know. Well, it's because they actually absorbed 2.65 billion in write-down from overestimating ATI's goodwill valuation. So they just thought highly. They were like, you could do it, but they couldn't. So then it's like, what? So then the cost, they've spent so much money on this. To a point where, so ATI had a separate handheld graphics division. And what they had to do was they had to sell that to Qualcomm for a 65 million deal. They're still like probably in debt, but they were like, maybe it was kind of like a, were you actually a scam company that, you know, we trusted you, thinking that you guys could bring us the best GPUs out there. But you know what was actually surprising was that AMD still trusted ATI. They were like, hey guys, it's just when we, you know, like maybe, you know, we need more time. Maybe time's gonna solve it. You know, I believe that it's gonna work. Now, going on next year, AMD really needs a new product. We lost money. We lost 2 billion from this like partnership that we thought would work. Okay, we need to build something. Like, we need to get it out. Well, we got a new product out called quad-core Opterons. And this is actually a product that's being sold these days. Well, guess what? This also had a problem. What is up with you guys having so much problems? What? Why can't you, like, fix the bugs? They were like, you know, we got this, but we have a bug. Sorry, guys. Sorry, buddy. And so they were unable to market it since they had to have a lockdown with all these bug issues. And they also had to put a stop to AMD's K10 production, which is a K10 Barcelona processor. And this problem actually took 6 months to fix it. But guess what? 6 months? In sales term or marketing terms is like 6 years. So again, sales and reputation. And I want to kind of like stop here to pinpoint some fun facts about AMD that I researched. Was that AMD at this time was actually very, very conscious into doing some advertising. Here I kind of want to relate to my stream because I was like, you know, if I keep doing my contents, you know, people will watch. People will, you know, appreciate me. Although I'm like the bottom of the list on Twitch, they'll watch me. They'll get there. They'll search my name. Well, come on, honey. That's not the deal. That's not how marketing works. There's a reason why people major in marketing. Not much advertising or anything was going on. Also, the fact that they had no presence on software side of the business was another big issue. So the problem with all the bugs or any issues that they found, I think this also dealt with why Intel had that steady increase versus AMD that had to fluctuate a lot because, so a little bit of kind of shakiness from AMD. Now, in 2008, we had a new CEO from Hector. Now we got Dirk Mayer. He actually became a CEO during a very difficult time. Unfortunately, there was a news about him saying that he suddenly resigned. One, quote from the worker was that he successfully stabilized AMD while he simultaneously concluded strategic initiative, including the launch and na. So basically saying, dude, I ran here. I was here from 2008 to 2011. This is so hard. I'm having so much hard time. I've tried my best. It's kind of stable, but I'm just So in 2011, he actually resigned. And we had this guy. He is Rory Reid, who's a CEO. He actually worked in IBM for 23 years. He also was the president and COO of Lenovo. And then he came to AMD as the CEO. So, great guy. Really nice to meet you. It's a very honor to meet you, Mr. Reid. Now, going on from now as Rory as a CEO, now comes the bulldozer. Which I found this product very interesting. So it's actually the product name is FX8510. A little bit about this is that it sported 4 clusters but marketed as 8-core, 8-threaded CPUs. Processors had multiple clock speeds. However, oh my god, don't ruin it, people! However, theoretically, it should have been dominating the market, but it wasn't able to handle. Why? Why? They said that ability to handle a lot of the threads would shine though, but single-threaded performance was often no better than the phenom range it was set to place. So basically, it didn't meet the performance. All the theoretical paperwork that people wrote and saying that, oh my god, this thing's gonna be a blast. So people were like, holy cow, the name is Bulldozer. I feel like it's gonna I don't know, fire out my computer and then I'd be able to play Half-Life or I don't know what's 2011 CSGO, high quality, all at ultra. But then it was just nah, something's not right, something I feel nah, but it just blah, blah. Which was unfortunate, and people had. And another thing that kind of was the opposite of Bulldozer, which I thought the name was funny, was Bobcat. So what Bobcat was actually for low power applications, for example, tablets or notebooks or embedded systems, which actually upgraded later to a Jaguar. I don't know, this cat and Jaguar. Actually, Jaguar was somewhat successful, guys, because it was selected by Microsoft and Sony for Xbox One and PS4 in 2013. So, at this point, honestly, I don't know about you guys, but for me, while doing the research, I was like, okay, can we get done with this reading? I really, well, she's here. She's here. We got her. Don't forget it. Don't worry. Well, let's kind of go back and talk a little bit about Lisa Su. In Korea, I thought it was funny because people call her Gatsasu, saying that she's a god for the AMD, and the Ryzen of AMD. So, my goddess. She actually has a doctorate in electrical engineering from MIT. And having conducted research into SOI, and I was like, what is SOI? And actually, SOI stands for Silicon on. They actually said that she was one of the first researchers to look into the SOI technology, and then unproven technology for increasing transistors. So, not only would I put her as the AMD goddess, but along with silicon or semiconductor goddess, I think she deserves that title. Also, a little bit about her is that she also worked in Texas Instruments and IBM as a R&D. She also was the senior vice president and general manager at Freescale. They really focused on Freescale Semiconductor, and then she finally took the position, the same position as a senior vice president and all those at AMD. So she actually started early 2010, 2014, I think. I forgot the exact date, but The official date of when she became the CEO was 2016. Things that she accomplished during her time working at AMD was that she moved into like different markets other than the PCs. So at like before we moved on to like the Xbox and PS4, they were only focusing on like the computers, period. But she was like, hey, there's other things, why don't you consider gaming side? Xbox, PS4, look at those. So she was one of those who actually drove them to look into those type of fields. Now, Lisa, you're here. Please save AMD. How did you save AMD? I'm not sure. All I hear is that you're God. I don't know what makes you God, but how are you God? Now in 2016, actually, the time period of when she became CEO and like a couple of years in between 2016, she was like, stop like chasing Intel. What we need to do is step back, kind of get our like all the things that we want to present or like give out and sell. We need to get that actually prepared and go against Intel. And that's the biggest like difference of all the previous year before Lisa and then the year after Lisa. Because previously, all AMD was doing was, wait, they created one? Reverse engineer. Here's AMD's version, but better. But now Lisa was like, okay, no. We're gonna take like a couple of years to kind of like research it, try to see something better, and then we're gonna actually go against the products and have better qualities that makes it better. So 2016, this is what everyone was waiting for, is that AMD's Zen processors has been shown up at the E3. A little bit about the specs, as I feel like you guys know it more than me, because I'm not really a smart processor, like that type of sorts, but the new Zen architecture says that it's gonna use a 14 nanometer FinFET process technology, expected to bring a 40% improvement for instructions per clock compared to the current generation AMD processors, up to 32 physical cores and symmetrical multi-threading, support for DDR4, the 8 channels, and support for all those. Well, that's actually very, very hard word for me, but what catches my mind when I was reading it was when people gave such a good feedback saying simultaneous multi-threading or the high bandwidth cache or the energy efficient FinFET design. I don't understand those, but all I understood was that their performance rate actually increased 40% compared to their excavator architecture. Still, unfortunately, Intel was much better, unfortunately, at this time, but it was gonna get there. The Zen, Ryzen, it's gonna all come out and it was gonna get there. I brought something that's fun for my non-IT people. Is their revenue, guys. The revenue. Back in 2011 was, their income was at 368, and 2012 just dropped completely, blah. 2013, and then 2014, 15, it's like blah blah, and then 2016, blah. So, Lisa actually had the hardest time in AMD. That's actually what I felt. And the results actually show with this beautiful picture. And I think this picture describes everything of AMD is this. I was actually gonna bring you guys the video, but this is what she said. So guys, this is actually her action was, hey guys, and then I'll bring you guys the Ryzen. Which I thought was really cool. And this is basically the beginning of Ryzen. Took the best from all the designs that in the AMD, past AMD products, and then combined them into one beautiful, shining Ryzen. So, there's two different standpoints that I wanted to bring with the Ryzen product, is that for PCs, obviously, is that it's a, 8-core, 16-thread CPU where possible. It's actually a mix between the Phenom and the FX architecture. And I thought this was funny because they actually priced this. They were going to price it around the 500 range, which they still thought that it was expensive. But the reason why they had to have it a bit expensive that they actually wanted was that Intel was charging the similar spec, but at $1,000. So that's double the price. And that's where AMD or like the Ryzen product got more known for, is that the fact that it's so much cheaper than Intel. Along with console, the biggest issue here was that the CPU layout consists of the two 4-core CPUs in the same die. And they had a high latency issue between the two sections of a chip. That was big words, but in the end, there was an issue with the console. But after they created this Ryzen product, it worked out. Which meant that this system on chip idea basically worked for the Microsoft and Sony console. So she just created this beautiful thing that works perfectly with Xbox, PS4. So if you guys are total console players, better thank her. It made your life much better. Goddess, thank you. You're amazing. Now, one thing that's also amazing about Lisa Su was that not only she brought the Ryzen product, but a month later she had the Ryzen 5 models, and then 2 months later the Ryzen 3 chips. So the products just kept coming like much better. Come. So much better. And their performance against Intel's offering was actually the same or like similar. But in terms of cost, AMD was much cheaper. So that's when people were like, oh my god! OMG! This AMD offers cheaper, but same spec as Intel? Who wants to buy Intel, guys? You guys are wasting your money. Stop being like those stupid people who don't think about saving your money, you know? You could save it to donate to Jinri TV. Buy AMD, guys. But anyways, overall, the sum of this is that in the space of 6 months, guys, 6 months, AMD showed that they were effectively targeting every x86 desktop market possible with a single one-size-fit-all design, which was Ryzen. So crazy, guys. Now in 2019, which is basically last year, something maybe you guys have a favorite of is the Gen 2. Sorry, I was like, what am I looking for? The Gen 2s, guys. So, I don't know, in 3 years now, she came up with Zen 2, which actually was much better because of this technology that AMD developed called chiplet. Okay, so let me give you that like super duper fancy description of following a monolithic construction where every part of the CPU is the same piece of silicon. The engineers separate in the core complex from the interconnect system, which divides the processor consisting of one die into multiple die and then connecting the die all together. Super fancy technique, but basically what it's saying is that they had different dies, but they actually had a way to connect it into one die, which I thought was, when I thought of die, it was like those rolling dies, but it's not that rolling dies. So I think these are what it's supposed to be. Well, the big thing about why this was such a big successful thing and why people were so interested in this new technique was that not only it made the cost cheaper because they didn't have to actually create for every single individual, they could just combine it into one, but also the fact that Intel actually had negative negative attitudes towards the technology in the past. But AMD actually drove it somehow to get this technology out and called it chiplet. So then, you know, like AMD fans are going like, woo! Intel fans are going like, I bet it doesn't work somehow. Somehow it won't work. Now, this is 2019, guys. Don't worry. We're gonna talk about 2020, but there's one important factor that I forgot about in this whole like CPU business is that AMD is still working on the GPU business. What they happen to do is that in 2015, they actually did a sector, they created a different section, which is fully independent, called Radeon Technologies Group, RTG. But they are creating the graphic cards. So currently, with the one that's been kind of like a very well-known, or like kind of getting into looked at or being looked at, is the Radeon RX 5700 series. These are actually being used for Xbox and PS5. So these are being used. GPUs are not as popular as the CPU Ryzen, but they haven't thrown away. They haven't lost the hope in AMD. Now, whew, now that was all the history. That was basically the history, the shallow version of the history. Very shallow. Whew, okay. Now let's go on to 2020. So AMD in 2020. This is the stock of today, September 3rd, 2020. So kind of recapping, you see that maybe in this area, which is when we had the chip maker AMD to buy the Nexgen, and we kind of got the sales rising, is the first peak up of what we had. And then in the 2006 one is where AMD and ATI merged. First, it was good. Earlier, when they first merged, was like, but nah, you know, so I mean it was, you know, getting there, but nah. And then you can also see that, like, from 2016 when we had Lisa Su, went woo! All news that's been really hot these days, I would have to say that the AMD Zen 3 release date, specs, price, everything we need to know about Ryzen 4000 has kind of came out. It's in September. So this month, guys, this month, it's gonna come out. This month, sometimes. Zen 3 is gonna come. And one sentence to phrase it is that imagine Zen 2, but even better. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. Not only that, along with the Zen 2, the AMD Ryzen 4000, they're gonna probably put that in the laptops and desktops. So laptop release with AMD Ryzen 4000 mobile processors have been a huge hit for AMD. That's probably why the 2020 stock price has been going very up. And hopefully that's gonna work. And the good thing about the Ryzen 4000 is hoping that it's going to deliver powerful performance, long battery life, and even ability to crunch data and play full HD games, all in a lightweight design. So hopefully that would work, and it'll be super cool, guys. That would be super cool. Now, kind of, you know, wrapping up, that's kind of what I've been seeing in the 2020s. I haven't seen other interesting components that might come along, but after doing this whole presentation and everything, I kind of see, you know, the Intel versus AMD, and the fact that Intel did the right thing, AMD did the right thing. I honestly am happy that I did notice AMD since Lisa Su, because I don't know, like after what Lisa Su came, it became more of a, you know, like a well-built company, or like they had a strong base and they weren't actually peddling, or like they weren't following Intel, but they were actually on the same side. So I see why the AMD Intel fans love to go against each other. I see the benefits of the AMD because it's much cheaper for a very good quality, which that's what everyone really wants. So it's very good. And yeah, I've honestly when I first did the AMD research, the whole time before 2016, I was like, I don't even know where to start with and what products to bring. But with Lisa and the Ryzen, it made it much easier. Not saying that the other CEOs were bad or anything, it just made it more clear that AMD became like a company with a clear vision. Usually I end with famous quotes from Lisa Su, or famous quotes from like the CEO that I appreciate. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any, which was very sad. So I wanted to bring in this interview that actually, this was the first time I've actually seen Lisa Su and the fact that she just has this nice attitude actually made me fall in love with her. So, I don't know if you guys seen this, but let me just play it.
I can learn for you. Excuse me, ma'am, do you speak English?
Yes, I do.
Well, you're Marty's random person, the first one of the year. How are you and what are you doing on the grid?
I'm doing great. I'm with AMD, so we're sponsoring the Ferrari car.
Okay, yes. So we're right. So you got VIP access. Look, you've got access everywhere by the looks of it. So that's the secret. Become a sponsor of Ferrari.
Yes, thank you. It's great. Fantastic.
All right, good to see you. Back to you.
It's one of those like, wow, they could be, she could have been like, I am the CEO of AMD. How do you not recognize me? Like, my stuff is there, guys. But the fact that she's more like a, oh, like, you know, I'm just with the team, I'm with the AMD team, and then, you know, like, this is a great event, I'm really having so much fun. The fact that she put it in such a modest way. So, that was the end of AMD presentation. I hope you really liked it. I hope you also follow and subscribe to my channel. I will do these presentations bi-weekly. So that was AMD for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day.